Hello, Internet.
And interwebs.
I am Scott. No, I'm not a zombie. I've always walked like that car. And with me, as always, is...
Robert, I've been placing my USB in more and more dirty ports lately. James.
Yeah, we didn't need to know that, actually.
Well,
Thanks for sharing.
you know.
Oh, my God. So, we have returned to the fall of Resident Evil with today's movie, which is Resident Evil Damnation, the second CGI film in the series, which I believe takes place between Resident Evil 5 and 6. We just saw it for the first time right before recording this, and we've got to say, that was a thing.
It was gloriously mediocre. Gloriously. Spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't seen this movie. Yes. We will be discussing all of it, but there's really nothing to spoil because you've seen this film.
Well, if you haven't seen this film, but you've played some of the games, you kind of can guess where things are going to go anyway, regardless. It's very much a Resident Evil plotline.
Yes.
Where good guys try to stop bad guys, and they're only semi-successful, and bad guys just keep releasing more and more monsters until we have to blow everything up. Hey, that's a Resident Evil storyline.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, as we did for the last one, we're going to do once again for this one. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start off with the good. But before we get too much into it, let's give a general breakdown of the plot line. So this one, once again, with Leon S. Kennedy, which we had in the last movie.
Briefly, but yes.
No. In the last movie, he was...
Oh, no, he was the main character. I'm thinking of Chris Redfield. Sorry, carry on.
Wow.
Shut up.
Don't get those mixed up.
No.
So, Leon S. Kennedy, once the main character for this one. He is in a country that is broken away from Russia, trying to get its own independence. And he is there where the U.S. and Russia are fighting over the country, and they're all told to pull out. He decides not to, and he immediately gets captured shortly thereafter by the terrorist forces that are trying to free them from the tyrannical rule of this one president. It's very political in that sense. But
very, very fall of the Soviet Union. The plot in the beginning could have been ripped out of the headlines into the 2000s. I mean, it was very...
It probably was, I suspect.
Yeah.
But then Leon S. Kennedy is basically stuck with a bunch of terrorist forces, and we have to go and slog through a big, long storyline explaining about how we have a new parasite, which is similar to the Plagas parasite from Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5, but now we have a whole master and slave version, where there's a version that if you have a strong enough will, you can control the BOWs. There's a lot of explanation in this movie, isn't there?
I don't like the way you said that, because you can't control the BOWs. You can control some of the BOWs.
In this movie, they show them only able to control the
liquors, which I found odd.
Yeah.
But okay.
Especially since it almost made it sound like, in one of the explanations, they make it sound like that there's a master version of the Plagas parasite, and then there's a slave version of the Plagas parasite. And basically, when you inject it, you can become master or slave depending on willpower. But then the liquors were never supposed to have had the Plagas virus, according to the games, if I remember correctly. They were supposed to be an offshoot of T-virus experimentation.
Right.
At least that's what they were showing in Resident Evil 2, which is the prominent game that they're in the most. I think they're also in Code Veronica. But that they had nothing to do with the Plagas virus, and they never show them controlling anyone with the Plagas virus in this movie. The people that get the master Plagas, all they do is they control liquors.
Right.
And wow, they got a lot of liquors. Where have they been hiding all these liquors? Never explained. We never find out.
No. They had them in the fields. In the fields with the cows. like they were milking them for it's.
Here, I thought you were telling me that they were growing them. These are homegrown liquors. They planted them early in the season, and now they were ripe.
They were growing. They were growing
harvested.
them in a field.
Yeah.
But anyway, and some old familiar people could show up again throughout the plot.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But again, you've seen it before in every Resident Evil game ever.
Yeah. So let's talk about the good. What was good in this movie? I have several things to talk about. And
you may begin.
Oh, then I'll begin. We get to see some glorious Resident Evil monsters in beautiful CG environments and in wonderful scripted CG battles. We really get to see, obviously, a lot of action from Lickers. We get to see the Plagas for the first time in CG because they had the regular T virus in the last one. They had the T virus and the G virus. So in the last one we got the dogs a little bit. We got the zombies, and then we got a G virus creature, and that was it.
Right.
I think. Actually, we might have gotten the dogs. I don't think the dogs were in there. No, I take that back. There was no dogs. We just had zombies and the G virus. That was it. So this one, we get Lickers. We get the Plagas virus version of the zombies. We get Tyrants.
Yes.
Which was very fun to watch.
Yeah, the way they moved, the way they fought was very true to the game.
Yep. And then, of course, like you were saying about people showing up, we get Aydah Wong. Yes. Fan favorite character. I especially enjoy watching Aydah Wong personally.
That would be my only good thing in this, actually.
I love watching her work.
Yes, yes.
She has always been a strong, badass woman in this movie. She's a strong, badass woman who actually has to go up against a new, strong, badass woman. She has kind of meets her match for the first time I can ever think of. Sort of. And when I say meet her match, I mean in a physical sense, because we are introduced to the president of this country, a woman by the name of Svetlana, who, it turns out, is no... what's the word I'm looking for?
Slouch?
No slouch. Thank you. No slouch when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. Oh my god. She stands toe-to-toe with Aydah very easily, and pretty much beats the crap out of Leon.
Leon didn't have a chance.
Yeah, in fact, Aydah even warns him ahead of time that not to go and take her lightly. Of course, he does.
Which is
he pays for it.
Which is my good. Now that I've thought about it, and it's threefold. One, there was not only one badass chick that they just let be a badass chick. She didn't need rescued once. In fact, Aydah rescued Leon no less than 2 times.
Yeah.
Twice, which was, to me, is freaking awesome.
If I remember correctly, you were doing a ongoing count of how many times Leon got saved.
6.
There you go. So,
not all by Aydah, but by different characters in the movie.
Exactly.
Which, believable to me. Oh, yes, okay. Leon is a badass. There's no doubt about that. Military background, able to kick butt. But he's still human. Yeah. Where Aydah was able to come in from the shadows and save him, he's trying to go head on like a freaking tank against this.
Always, yeah.
And to me, it makes sense. The male character is going to get in trouble. He's going to die because he's an idiot. Yeah. But the good was, again, 2... And one of the badass female characters was not only badass, good looking, but middle-aged.
Oh, yeah.
She wasn't this young bubblegum, goofball. She was intelligent. She was evil, pure evil, but she was intelligent. She was middle-aged, and totally able to one-to-one with Aydah with no issues. Yeah. That's 2 and 3. 3 is Capcom. I'm impressed. Some of the more risque scenes that they filmed. I'm not talking about in a sexual nature. How do I say this? Some of the camera angles, some of the... But they were never disrespectful, but it is something you come to expect in anime.
Right. a lot of fan service. Yeah,
fan service. That's the word. That's the word.
They were doing fan service, but at the same time, not.
It was believable. It wasn't intentional. It was like Aydah would flip, and you'd go, "Oh, that's fan service."
I would say it's as believable as Resident Evil gets when you got a woman who constantly flips to get anywhere in a room. That's the only thing about Aydah.
Put on some shorts, girl.
Well, no. What I always found interesting about the Aydah Wong character, this they have done in several games, movies, whatever. She is very acrobatic, and that's fine. Okay, I understand. But she will literally see something across the room. Does she dive for it? Does she run for it? No. She does somersaults to get to it, like, every single time. Like, she can't cross a room without doing somersaults.
That's because she can't walk. I mean, she can flip. She just can't walk.
Well, it seems that way sometimes.
The CGI was beautiful. The sunrise scene, if you've seen this movie, when you see it for a split second, you're going to be that's live action. Of course, then they pull back into the buildings, you can see it's not.
You were also commenting when we were watching it that you really liked how they were doing the build-up at the beginning, because during the opening credits, they're doing a background of Shaw in this country.
Good.
And they decided to do what almost looks like hand-drawn stills. For the scenes of them showing all the conflict that they've had, so they have all these hand-drawn still images,
like Samurai Jack almost. Is what it reminded me of.
Yeah,
so yeah.
I mean, obviously they don't have that for the rest of the film. It's only in the opening sequence, but yeah, it was rather an interesting opening, and it looked rather good. So, yeah, another thing I think you might want to add to the good section.
That could be a good section. And story. I mean, it did have a good story. It's a story you've heard before.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a Resident Evil story.
Well, it's a story that they've also done 15,000 other times and 15,000 other movies and books. But
I hate to say it, but yeah, Resident Evil usually does that because they're supposed to be an homage to be horror films, if you will. But how do most people do homages? No, they just rip off something.
Pretty much. Hey, we love you. That's why we're going to copy you word for word.
It's like, well, was it? What's the saying that replicating or duplicating is supposed to be the
highest form of flattery.
Thank you. The highest form of flattery. Yeah. So
YouTube, all these copyright strikes, you're stopping us from flattering people.
There you go. But yeah, it's if you've seen anything on Resident Evil, you already have an idea what it's going to be. But now let's get into a little bit of the bad. One of the things that I can say right off the bat is that a little too much on the politics. I mean, I get it. It's part of the storyline, but yeah, I always feel it's bad for a horror film, especially a B-horror film, where you want to go and have all of this political talk and all these explanations of how the political hierarchy is in it, when we're here to see monsters kill people and go after people. I mean, we're not here for the politics, you know. So that was one thing. And another thing was Leon. Okay, we got a badass character. He's going to have some badass one-lines. Boy, are those one-lines completely inappropriate in some places. So some of the one-liners he had are like, oh my god, it's like a one-liner for the sake of a one-liner. And some of the setups for the one-liners, like, oh my god, you just had that, so he had that line, didn't you? Some of them were groan-worthy, you know? Oh, especially like where he notices he's going to have to climb up on the rooftops, and he has to make a mention about Santa Claus. Of course. It was supposed to show that he has a sense of humor, and he's trying to go and, like, it's a serious situation, so he's trying to deal with it with making light of the situation and stuff like that. Kind of like what they do with Spider-Man, but it just felt too forced in this.
Yep.
Especially certain situations were way more serious and felt like the whole one-liner he's giving almost takes away from the seriousness of the scene.
Yep.
Exactly. So now he almost died, but he's going to give a one-liner about slamming a liquor up against the wall. Even though he barely survived. Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He was making it sound like it was easy when he's almost dead. I'm like, what? No, that doesn't gel
at all.
No,
at all.
No.
My bad is threefold. One, what's with me at threes today?
Yeah.
There is no good guy. They don't establish a good guy. Leon immediately, okay, let's be realistic. He's a member of the military. He's sent there to do a mission. Mm-hmm. He's told to abort that mission and ignores it.
Oh, he's told to abort in the
first 15 seconds,
the
right?
First minute, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ignores his superiors and goes in by himself. I'm sorry, this makes you a bad guy. Mm-hmm. You are risking war with another country.
Yeah.
You were told to retreat. Retreat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Aydah's certainly not a good guy. She's in it for money, or for whatever.
Yeah. The whole point of Aydah is always that she's working for somebody. She doesn't really do freelance.
Right.
So she's always working for somebody, usually the highest bidder, I suspect.
The president is supposedly doing this for her people and so she could become part of the United Nations, but she's willing to eliminate her entire town along with all of its elders to reach this. So you're not a good guy.
No.
Who's the good guy? The freedom fighters do the same thing. They're willing to kill themselves and others to control these.
The president is supposed to be the villain. I mean, it's obvious they're setting her up to be the villain. She's supposed to be the villain of the story. And then the resistance fighters, the terrorists, whatever, they're supposed to be seen as not as the victims.
Okay.
So they're supposed to be the victims. Leon is supposed to be the hero character. Obviously, once again, like you pointed out, he's there against orders. So
risking war.
Yeah, risking war.
Not a good guy.
But I'm just saying.
He's got his own agenda.
Yeah. He's still supposed to be the hero. They're seeing him as kind of like... Arnold Schwarzenegger rainbow type.
Right.
That's supposed to be the whole point of him that, hell with your orders, I'm going to do what's right, that sort of thing.
Right.
That's the kind of hero they're trying to portray him as.
And to me, again, I think realistically when I watch these movies, and I hold them to too high of a standard, I'm fully aware of that, but realistically, Rambo was wrong. Sorry, folks. He got beat by a cop, you get a lawyer and you sue. Mm-hmm. You don't go crazy and kill the entire police force.
I think you were going to say specifically Resident Evil films, you hold too high of a standard. And I was like, so you want your horror films to be realistic when they got monsters?
Oh, no. Resident Evil 7 was way realistic enough for me. I spent half that game hiding.
Yep.
But again... Give me an established good guy. Give me an established bad guy. At the very least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would be my bad.
Mm-hmm. Sure. There's a few other things that could be considered bad in this, but they'd be more nitpicky, to be perfectly honest.
Us? Nitpick?
No.
Never.
No, we wouldn't do that. What is a review but nitpicky?
Exactly.
Actually, you can say that about anybody that does reviews. But I think that's about it for the bad. So let's move on to the ugly. I've got an ugly.
You're gonna have because I just was too mediocre for me to have.
Oh no, there is an ugly.
That is my ugly. It's too mediocre. Yeah, but anyway,
no, my ugly is one very important thing. One word: pacing.
Oh, it did do this a lot.
My God.
It went from 0 to 1,000 to 0.
So the last Resident Evil film, I was very happy with the pacing because they set up, you get the idea of what's going on. They're slowly building up to the attack on the airport. Then you have the attack on the airport, and it's a nice build up as to whether who's going to survive, who's not going to survive. They got to get out of the airport. They get out of the airport, and now we have a nice calm cool down moment while we know that the supposed villain is getting ready to do something, and we're building up to the next moment, and then we get to the science place building, and then we have our big huge finale with the G virus monster. Very well paced. I was pretty much happy with it. This one, however, we start off with a conflict. And then we get captured, and now we got to have Leon with these guys, and they got to go and establish comic relief. A lot of comic relief as we explain what's going on. And then we have to have a little bit of an action, followed by more explanation. And it's just back and forth with this. And then every time we cut away from Leon, where do we go? We go to the president. And we go to the president trying to make it sound like she's being duped by Aydah Wong, when in actuality she's the villain and she's actually trying to figure out what Ada's actually behind and all this other stuff, and it's very convoluted. And we keep going back and forth from a little bit of action to a lot of explanation, to a little bit of action to a lot of explanation. And even the action is not that great until we get to the end. By the time we get to the end, I was ready for it to, have a big finale and just be done with it. And then we had what looked to be the big finale. And then it's like, oh no, wait, that's right. Tyrants aren't easy to kill.
Well,
we've got a couple more finales to go through, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And then, it was fun to watch when we were having the fights with the Lickers and with the Tyrants. They're very entertaining. But there's a lot of stuff we gotta get through, and the pacing on those scenes definitely slow it down. And for me, the pacing was everywhere. As soon as it feels like we start getting an actual pacing for the film, we either stop it or we ramp it up and then stop it. And it's just like, you can't do that. You can't be hitting the gas and then hitting the brakes. Yeah, it was all over the place to me.
Yeah, I could have done without the entire movie until the last 15 minutes. Yeah. As soon as that first tank rolled in, it got interesting. And the rest is my ugly. It's a mediocre film. It's not great. Mm-hmm. It's not horrible. It's let's eat some popcorn and blow an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm. So how many coffee cups did you give this one?
1.5.
Wow, that's a lot lower than I expected.
1.5.
I am easily going with 3 out of 5 because here's the thing: is it mediocre? Yeah, it's not a great movie, but at the same time, it does feel like there's some stakes to be had. It feels like a film. This doesn't feel like an episode of a TV show. I always hate it when it feels like this is just another day in his life. No. This is a big moment in his life. It feels like a film, and like I said, for people who like Resident Evil, you're gonna love seeing the Lickers. You're gonna love seeing Tyrant. You're gonna love seeing some of these battles because the battles are good. Like I said, the fight scenes are good. The problem that you got, and the reason that it really hurts it, is the pacing. The fact that you got to sludge through all of the explanation and everything like that to get to these cool scenes, and the fact that even the moments that are supposed to be suspenseful, they're suspenseful for a minute, and then I never really felt like Leon was in that much danger, especially when you keep saving his butt every 5 seconds. Like you said, he gets saved like 6 times in this movie. Right. You can't keep doing that and then still feel like he's ever in any danger. Even when a Tyrant is about to put his claws through his face, I never feel like they're actually going to connect.
Right.
Because of how many times he got saved. Oh, big shock. He gets saved again.
Right. I had to score this one low just because, again, I've seen this movie. Before I ever sat down and watched it, I've read this plot in books. It didn't do anything new for me. We've seen the Tyrants. We've seen the Lickers.
Yeah.
The only new aspect was that somebody could control them, which I always said in the video games. In fact, I think we talked about that. Mm-hmm. Why in the world would you create zombies and Tyrants when you can't control them? Mm-hmm. It's not a weapon if it can turn on you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that's why it's so low, just because they could have done something. Tell me a new story. Tell me something I don't know.
Yeah, and then the fact that whoever goes and controls them, then of course they end up eventually turning into a monster themselves because the Plagueis takes over. The master Plagueis takes over their body eventually.
So you still die.
Well, except that they mention that there's a way to get rid of it, but then you usually are going to be paralyzed for the rest of your life. But what bothers me also is that that's mentioned like one time in the film, and then later on, at the end, the guy is begging to be killed.
That was my original ugly. So thank you.
He's begging to be killed because he doesn't want to turn into a monster. Leon gives him a big speech about how when you decide to take up arms against monsters and stuff like that, you don't give in and just kill yourself. You're in it for the long haul or whatever. You have a responsibility to the people who died to live on for them, even if you're paralyzed, which implies that he is planning on killing the parasite.
Not the guy.
Exactly. And then they show him shoot the guy. Now
7 times.
No. He shoots him just once. They only have one gunshot, and then they cut to another scene. So you only hear one gunshot, and then they cut to another scene. But here's the problem with that. How exactly to get rid of the parasite? Because he said it's severed to your spine. Okay, so I would assume the parasite is somewhere on your back. He's shooting them from the front. Where exactly is he aiming?
What I got out of that is that he knows he is infected with the parasite at this point in this movie. Because if you were thinking of the games, he knows. So he was talking about himself, not the guy.
Yeah, but even then, I get it. I get that. But at the same time, you get the impression that he's going to he wants the guy to survive as well, that he's speaking from a personal experience, but that the guy has to survive, but then it looks like he kills him. So I don't know if they're trying to claim that he's killing the parasite and the guy's going to survive, or he is giving the speech and then killing the guy. That was a little confusing because they don't show the guy after that. I mean, they have one more scene with Leon after that where he's just getting drunk. Which I believe is setting up for the next movie.
For his alcoholism.
We'll wait until the next movie to talk about that. But I thought it was very confusing how they ended it. I felt that they could have done a much better job of, giving us more concrete evidence as to what he did, like showed the guy in a hospital bed or something.
Right. Maybe he
come
comes back in the next movie. Who knows?
I doubt it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. How many of the original characters in the last movie came back in this one?
Good call. They didn't even mention them.
They didn't even mention them. Yeah. They never happened, apparently.
Which reminds me, we're unscripted and mostly harmless.
Nah, we're just two guys who talk about movies.
Well, that too.
We never did say the name of the title.
No, we're horrible.
Boy, we're slipping.
Yes, we are. So, that's all I got.
I'd say we're old men, except we're not.
But
okay. So, that's it for this one. Tune in next time. We'll be doing the last of the CG films.
Yes.
Which is Resident Evil Vendetta. I believe that's the name of it.
Don't quote me.
Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that's the title now. So until then, later.
And remember, this is peace. This is love. If you're doing this, you better be alone. See you next week.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Get ready.
Fight. Expression.com